Hello and welcome back to Witches of the Moon. I'm Eva Maria, your Monday hostess, and this week is going to be a really fun week. This is a week in which all of us hosts and sub-hosts, or whoever happens to be making videos from Monday through Friday, we get to choose our own topics. So we're all going to bring you a plethora of just different stuff, whatever we feel we want to bring forward. And so for my video, I was thinking about the power and purpose of wax melts, in magical working, because you don't really hear too many people using wax melts for magical purposes, though I think there's some potential there. One thing I was thinking of, the most obvious thing that could be done, I thought about how, some people can't burn incense in their homes, or if you're in college, you can't burn incense in your dorm, depending on people's situations. There are, let's say maybe you're living with someone with an allergy, or, if someone in your house has emphysema or like asthma, or, sometimes there's situations where you just can't burn incense, you can't smudge, you can't fill your home with smoke, because for whatever reason there may be either someone that it may affect in an adverse way, or again, if you're living, let's say, in a dorm, you're in a college or something, they may just be like, no, you can't burn incense because it's a fire hazard. But the most obvious thing that occurs to me is obviously wax melts can be used in place of incense, to help to center your focus on what you're doing using the scents that are in the melts, in appropriately chosen fragrances, obviously, to the working that you're doing. So for example, if you're doing, let's say, a prosperity work, you may want to burn, or not burn, but you may want to melt a wax melt with a fragrance such as, for example, basil. Basil is known as a money herb. That's something that you can do rather than have incense, to help to draw your focus into, directing your intention in your work. Or if it's a love work, you could use something such as, for example, honeysuckle, or maybe rose, or, some such love-oriented fragrance. You can choose the scents of your wax melts accordingly with the work that you're doing, and you can use them in place of incense if you can't use incense. And there are electric wax melters for people that cannot have open flames. Now, these things aside, this obvious suggestion aside, there's another thing you can do. You can charge your wax melts and use them again and again and again, so long as the fragrance is present, like an oil lamp would be used in a magical working for a long-term work. So, let's say you want to work on a love situation, but you're going to work on it for a long, long time. Well, you can charge a wax melt, and again, a fragrance that is conducive to and associative of love, such as, again, rose or honeysuckle or maybe jasmine or some such scent. And then, you've chosen your wax melt, you've charged it, and then you can melt the wax. You can melt it, every day at a certain time of day. Maybe you can choose a planetary hour such as, that of Venus, which would also be conducive to love. And every time you're burning it, you can do other things in conjunction with the burning of the wax melt. For example, maybe you want to focus on a sigil, or maybe you want to, you know, you could do something such as incant, or maybe chant, or meditate, or visualize, or whatever it is you want to do. You know, you can do something or things along with the burning of the wax melt every day at that certain planetary hour. You could even get really creative with your wax melter. You could, let's say, use a Sharpie or some enamel paint or something, and on the side of the wax melter, probably Sharpie would be the better way to go, you could draw like a sigil, or, you know, some sign of intention that goes along with what you're doing. If you wanted to add sprinkled herbs into your wax melt, if you were using it for a long-term work in the way that I described, you could sprinkle some herbs in there. There's nothing wrong with that. You can also, to prolong works you've already done, if you have, let's say, I have a candle here as an example. Let's say that you worked a spell. This is just a fragrance candle. But let's say I worked a spell with this, and sometimes, now there's still a little bit that can burn yet in here. You can see it still has a wick. Sometimes the wicks will fall over at a certain point toward the bottom, and it's like, that's it. It's all it can burn, but there's still like a lot of wax left. If you wanted to prolong a working that you've done, you can make your own wax melts using the wax that has remained in the container, you know. Or if, let's say, you burn your candle on a plate and it melts and there's just like the pile of melted wax, you could scrape all that up and you could create your own wax melts to prolong the work that you've done using your candle. Now ideally it would be a scented candle. You can scrape out the wax. Of course you would throw away the wick and the little metal thing at the bottom. And then the next step to creating your own wax melts for prolonging the work you did with the candle is you create a double boiler on your stove. A double boiler works like this. You've got a cooking pot here with maybe halfway water into it, like you fill it halfway with water, and you sit a bowl that is a little bit bigger than the pot, so it will sit on the pot and not like fall in. It'll like stay there. You know, you put a ceramic bowl, or it can be a Pyrex bowl, something that can take some heat. And then you put your candle wax pieces into the bowl. And then as the pot comes to a boil, the wax will begin to melt down. You want it to melt down to a liquid, pure liquid, no chunks. Okay? So just remember, there's halfway water in this cooking pot. Got your bowl full of wax. Bring this to a boil. You should have like a spoon or a chopstick or something to stir your wax as it's melting so that it fully melts. You want it totally liquefied. And then what you can do to create your wax melts is you can buy, like, just for this purpose, you can buy an ice cube tray, a cheap one, like from a dollar store, or I think Walmart sells them really cheap, like 97 cents you can get one or something like that. You get an ice cube tray, and once you've liquefied your wax, then you pour it into the ice cube tray. And by the way, I will say, as you're liquefying your wax, you can concentrate on the intention that your candle was for. You can put further energy into these wax melts as you're creating them. Just a suggestion. And basically, once you've poured the liquid wax into the ice cube tray, you just let it sit and cool off and harden up. I don't recommend putting the ice cube tray in the freezer because I've heard that the wax melts can sweat and it can create just weird issues with them, you're better off just putting them somewhere and letting them cool off on their own gradually until they become hardened. And what they come out to look like, I have some here that I made. They come out to look just like this. And these are tobacco noir wax melts, which is what this candle was. I had another one that I did this with. And these wax melts came out nice. And then you just store them in a bag or in a jar or somewhere you store them. You know, obviously mark what the scent was or if it's for a magical purpose. These are not for a magical purpose, but if they were, if this was a magical candle that I melted down to use, you know, to prolong the work, I would be sure to mark what the intention was as well on the container that I'm storing them in. But in my case, these are just scented wax melts, tobacco noir. I don't know if you can see it because the light, there you go, tobacco noir. Sky's pretty much the limit. I just thought I would bring up these suggestions because wax melts, I've had them on my mind. I've been using them a lot lately. And, you know, I thought maybe I could bring something a little inspiring and different to the table. If anything I've said here today inspires you, try it out, run with it. If you come up with ideas where you want to tweak something that I've suggested here, add something, take something away, do something a little differently, feel free, because that's how you learn and grow, and that's how you come up with some really awesome ideas. This is pretty much my video for this week. I hope you've enjoyed it. I look forward to all the topics that everyone else chooses this week, because it's really cool, you know, that we have this freedom this week to just be like, let's pick our own topic, you know. So I'm curious to see, like, what's everyone else going to bring forward. And I recommend that you all, you know, stay tuned, check out all those other videos. If you have any thoughts, questions, comments, anything in regard to what I've talked about today, you know, using wax melts in magic or in spiritual practice or anything like that, feel free to, you know, comment below. It's nice to start discussions on things like this. And with that, I wish you blessed be and ashe. Have a great day. You stay awesome. And until our next exchange, bye-bye for now.